The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
AlternaTV.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of AlternaTV. I am your host, Brandon Stransky, here for Vince Russo's The Brand. I just want to apologize for this little late, for not having a show up last week and kind of having some crazy stuff going on at home and with work, and as well as other projects. But I do want to apologize to Vince and Jeff and the viewers for not having a show ready last week. Again, you know, there's really no excuse for it. I do apologize. Hopefully we can get things going back on a more consistent schedule here. Just, you know, hoping as long as things kind of stay, you know, relatively normal at home and with work. The main topic I wanted to discuss today is a theory I've been working on and trying to develop, and that theory is that I'm starting to believe that wrestling kind of falls on a spectrum. Basically, meaning what that is you know, the spectrum, of course, is, you know, two-sided. You know, you have on one side. And again, this is just 100% purely my theory, you know, nothing really concrete, just, you know, what I've been kind of rattling on in my head, something I've been trying to put together, is the theory goes, on one side you have, when it comes to wrestling, on one side of the spectrum you have where it's, you know, storyline heavy, story driven, character angle driven, where it's nothing but, you know, skits, stories, and character development. Basically, it's a pure TV show as opposed to a wrestling show. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have where it's just, you know, purely matches and promos. Everything is about the matches. I mean, there's no story, no creative, just guy, you know, wrestler 1, wrestler 2 goes out and wrestles. And that's basically what the show is based around. It's just, you know, the scripted fights without any kind of character or story development. And I've been when I went back and watched a lot of the, you know, the old Raws and the old Nitros during the Monday Night Wars, that's kind of where the theory started to develop a little bit. Was I noticed, like, you know, during the Monday Night Wars, Raw was, you know, closer towards the storyline, character heavy end of the spectrum, whereas, you know, with WCW is a little bit further down the other end. Now, the stories were there, the angles and the character development was there, but it was definitely more, you know, wrestling heavy than the WWE was at the time. But, you know, basically that's kind of, you know, what I've been believing, still kind of trying to work on it and put it together, but essentially, that's my theory, is that wrestling is on a spectrum where you have one end storyline, angle, character driven, you know, not as much focus on the in-ring product, and then the other end is very heavy in-ring, less, you know, little focus on story, characters, and angles. And speaking of that, you know, kind of moving up and down the spectrum, I've been noticing past few weeks, Raw has been kind of start creeping back the other direction from, you know, the story, creeping, you know, slowly starting to creep towards, you know, that direction. Granted, it's still not great. It's still got a long way to go, but the fact that they're at least starting to take baby steps in that direction, I think is a very good thing. Something they definitely need to be doing, because the wrestling, you know, business in general has been kind of shifted off towards the part of the spectrum where it's, of course, very wrestling and promo heavy, where all it is just, you know, the matches and the promos about the matches. Now, the quality of these steps in that other direction, definitely up for debate, but I will give them credit for at least trying out new things. In my opinion, what they're doing with the Cruiserweight division, I think they're definitely heading in the right direction with that, as far as how it's featured on Raw. And honestly, if I was, you know, writing the show, that's how I would, you know, be presenting the Cruiserweight division. Give them a couple segments on the show, kind of, you know, maybe 6 to 8 to 10 minutes per segment, And then it's kind of used as, you know, quick commercials to kind of try to draw viewers to 205 Live. You know, just feature a quick match in an angle to try to, you know, entice a viewer to come to 205 Live, which I think is, you know, the best way to go about doing it, and that's what they're doing now. So I think they're definitely heading in the right direction when it comes to that. I think they could do a little bit more, and maybe, you know, kind of experiment a little bit more, but I think they are definitely on the right track of the cruiserweight division. It is hot. It is too hot out. Too hot out, man. This early in June, it is ridiculous here in the Midwest. And as you've probably seen, I got a new column up called Biting the Bullet, where I do a bullet point review of Monday Night Raw. I had originally wanted to do a a weekly column where what I would do was I would take what they did on Raw and explain what I would do differently, kind of working within their framework and how they, you know, structured the show and what I would have done differently. But, you know, when I had originally started coming up with that concept, you know, after watching the show, my answers ended up being, or my you know, solutions on how to fix the show was throw it in the trash and rewrite it. Doesn't really make for, you know, an entertaining or in-depth column, something worth really reading. So I started coming up with something new and just kind of doing it that way with the bullet point review. What else did I want to talk about today? But yeah, now I remember. The Repairing Raw, I'm actually going to start doing as a segment on this show starting next week. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to pick a segment or pick a particular piece of Raw, whether it's a storyline, whether it's an angle, or whether it's a character that could use some adjustment or, you know, further development or additions, or something that can, you know, use some more meat, use some more, you know, sizzle, add some more sizzle to the steak. And I think next week what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out how I would do the Alexa Bliss Nia Jax feud. Basically, the idea just to give a little bit of a preview to it, I would start building it now, like get into it now, and I would culminate it at WrestleMania, and I would definitely, and a big part of the angle would involve the first ever Women's Royal Rumble match. I think it's high time they start high time for it. I think it's the right time for it. They definitely have a big enough roster. I would have 15 women in that match. I would bring in a few surprises to make it special, to make it stand out. But I think it's definitely time for them to do a Women's Royal Rumble. It's a bit, I wouldn't say overdue, because they haven't really had the roster to be able to pull it off, or the spotlight on it to pull it off. But I think they do now, and I think it's definitely the right time to do it. What's my schedule looking like? I will be, what are my dates? The dates I have coming up are, I will be June 28th, I will be in Crossville, Illinois, wrestling for Strictly Insane Pro Wrestling. That's the next show I have coming up, and the last one for the month. Got a couple more coming up in July. I'll start promoting those as it gets closer to those dates. But then again, I just want to thank you guys for listening, and remember, check out all the other great people we have on the brand. We have the Super Ugly Show. We have Miss Chantel Air, who does a great job editing this show. Thank you again, Miss Chantel. You do phenomenal work. We have Sharia with her Impact review. She does a great job with that. We have Scott Casey Gale with his show, and the show he does with Sarah Rusi, Beauty and the Beast. I think we have a new one that dropped there. And again, just, check out all the wonderful, wonderful content we have on the brand. And again, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
brand members and I Chantal and you can watch me every weekend only on the weekend feature because there isn't anybody out there quotes like Miss Chantal and it's
What's up, everyone? This is Sharia. You can catch my Impact Wrestling reviews every week on the brand, and you don't want to miss them.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.